Hello everyone, how are we all doing? Now, I want to do a video talking about healthy and unhealthy feelings, both positive and negative, okay, which I think is very important to cover because I get asked a lot that is being rational, is applying REBT, meaning that I eliminate any strong feeling, that I eliminate any emotion? Well, the answer to that is no. Okay, that is the often misconception to REBT and rational thinking, because people think that if you become rational, it means you can't enjoy anything. It means that you can't be emotionally invested to anything. It means that you can't be driven or striving to achieve a goal, which is complete nonsense, because since I've been very rational and very stoic and applied unconditional acceptance and applied REBT with the Albert Ellis tools, I've been more driven than ever, more determined than ever, and more motivated than ever to achieve my goals. Okay, so let me explain how that works. Now, when we look at unhealthy feelings, okay, these often consist of guilt, shame, panic, depression, chronic anxiety, over concern, rage, vindictiveness, anger, the list goes on and on and on, where you, with that feeling, will be very overwhelming. That will be 0 to 100 catastrophic thinking. I'll give you an example of how that would work. So if you hold the belief that that person or a loved one of mine or that friend or family member must treat me well, they have to treat me well, and if they don't treat me considerately, if they don't treat me fairly, then they are evil, they are no good, they are scum, they are rotten, okay? Then of course, that kind of belief is going to lead to the feelings of rage, anger towards them, over-concern, depression about yourself, about the world, self-pity, okay? That is how it stems from that kind of thinking. We've got to be very aware of those kind of things, okay? Because we need to look into changing them into more healthy preferences, into more healthy desires, into wants and likes. So I want them to like me, okay? They never need to like you, because as soon as you say I want them to like me and I prefer them to treat me well, then they have to treat me well, then they must treat me well, and if they don't, they're awful. And that is, like I said, leads to feelings of those unhealthy over concerns, panic, anxiety, rage, and so on. Okay, but if we change it to healthy desires, to a strong preference that they treat you fairly, then if they don't, you would see them as someone who, as a human who can make mistakes, who can treat you unfairly, because they never need to. There is no universal law stating that they have to treat you fairly. There is no law in the universe that that person has to treat me under all conditions. They have to be considerate, they have to treat me fairly, because they don't and they won't, no matter how much they'd like you to. And that's going to lead you to more a healthy disappointment, sorrow, regret, frustration, annoyance, okay, which is a valid, healthy, negative feelings. Because when you get what you want, or when you don't get what you want, that's a healthy way of feeling, instead of rage and anger, okay? And it's the same with positive feelings as well, and let me explain. So let's say you did well, let's say you didn't act well, okay? Let's say you're performing really well in your business or in your career or in your sport or anything, okay? Now, if you then label yourself as the superhuman, godlike, holier than thou, better than everyone else, put yourself on the pedestal that because I did well, I'm now better than you, sort of that egotistical, that arrogant, that obnoxious feeling, that is because you're saying, I have done well, so that means I am good. I have acted well, I have performed really well at this task, that means I am better than you. That means that not only am I good at this task, I'm a better person than you. I am overall a good person compared to you. I am better than you, I am stronger than you, I am more intelligent than you, you know, and you're then rating yourself based on an act. And the key there is striving for task perfection, which is healthy, because you can try and perfect, let's say, the task of football, or the act of writing, or the project at work, or you can try and perfect that. That's fine. Task perfection is healthy, as long as you keep the I would like to do that, I'd much perform to do well, but I never need to do, then that's healthy. But the problem is when people say, I have to perform, I have to have self-perfection as well, okay, which is a huge problem, because then you're implying that you can't just be good at one task, you can't just perfect one task, you have to perfect yourself, which isn't possible, because a human cannot be perfect at everything, right? I'd like to meet that person, but they do not exist, because there is no superhuman power that exists that can perform every act perfectly. It just does not happen. For example, the very good writer might be very rubbish at football, the very good painter might be a terrible gardener, the very good dentist might be a really rubbish doctor. Okay, now let's look at this. So if you just strive for performing a task very, very well and never rating yourself based on how you do, then like I said, that's going to lead to more healthy way of thinking. It's going to lead you to be more driven, because you're going to strive to perform that well and to perfect that, because you like the results that come from that. The desired outcome is great. So let's say, for example, if you do well in business, you then achieve higher profits. You then become a more reputable business, and more people will come to you. You will then, for example, maybe be able to open a bigger shop or a bigger warehouse, or expand the business, so it brings more results that way. The problem is when they say, well, if I do well at business, that makes me a better person at business than you, makes me a better person than you because of my business traits, okay, which is a problem, because then you're rating yourself and not just the act. You're rating yourself and not just the activity, not just the project or the task that you're doing. Okay, when you rate yourself, the problem with that, it then leads to, if you don't maintain that, if you don't keep that up to a very high standard, you're then going to feel very anxious about keeping up to this high level, this noble level, this godlike level, this superhuman level, because no human is going to be able to maintain that. Yes, you can be very, very good at what you do, but if you're striving to be absolutely perfect and better than everyone else, and then rate yourself as better than everyone else, you're going to be very anxious and very over concerned and very panicked about sustaining that, about constantly achieving that. And then what happens if you slip back? As humans will do, because we're fallible, we're imperfect. What happens if you slip back? And then you go down the spiral, you then go down the rabbit hole of unhealthy negative feelings, such as depression, anxiety, guilt, self-pity, shame, hostility, vengeance, and so on and so on. Okay, and then the first book on our reading list really helps with viewing this, because Albert Ellis really breaks down and distinguishing the difference between healthy and unhealthy feelings, both negative and both positive feelings, because people tend to think that it's just depression, anxiety, guilt. Yes, they're negative feelings, but you've got to think of the grandiose feelings as well, that the like I said, the noble, the godlike feelings, the holier than thou, that I'm better than you, because that gets people into a lot of trouble. And not just OCD, I see it all the time in any kind of mental health, or any kind of just, if I'm on TikTok, for example, I'm better than you, or I've got more money than you, so I'm better than you. I'm better at football than you, so that means I'm better than you. I'm better at writing than you. I had this many sales on this. I had this many recordings on this song, so I'm better than you. No, you may be better at singing the song. It depends on how you rate the human standard. It depends on how you rate the act, because that's all subjective as well. That's all down to perception and what someone thinks is good, what someone thinks is bad, what the human standard thinks is good, or what human thinks is bad. Because someone over there could, for example, think that it's bad, that the song is bad, and then people over there could think the song's good. So it's all down to perception as well. So let's look at it like that. So you're then rating yourself as better than someone else just because of what a subjective opinion, which can change, by the way, which is ever changing. You're saying, I'm better than you because that group of people think is good, even though that people think is bad, but I'm going to forget that. I'm going to say I'm better than you. You know, as I'm speaking here, you can tell there's no logic behind this good and bad and rating yourself, okay? And Albert Ellis breaks this down really, really well. And this is very relevant to OCD, because You even get it where, let's say someone's doing really well in their journey, in their OCD journey, and sort of rating people as, oh, I'm doing better than you, so, or I'm feeling better, so I am better than you, kind of thing, or I've read this many books, so I am better than you, or just I've got this theme, so I'm not going to suffer as bad as you. You know, it happens all the time. The rating. Okay, so you've got to be very wary of that. You know, all it does, it gets people into lots of trouble, and it gets people into feeling all kinds of emotional disturbance. So you've got to be very, very honest and be very aware and have lots of insight into what causes that. Because you can go back and look at insights into things where, or why do I feel like this? Or what was it, something in my childhood? Was it something that my parents said to me? Was it something that happened when I was 15? Was it something that happened when I was 10? Was it something that caused this? You know, that insight, yes, it can be helpful. Yes, it can, you know, is interesting. It's, you know, yes, it, you know, it's something, it's nice to know, but it doesn't actually help anything. So insight is good in regards to, it gives you an insight into what's bothering you, but it's now down to you to do a thing to change about that. And that's looking at your rational demands, looking at your black and white thinking, changing them to healthy desires, changing them into preferences, look at your necessities, look at your needs. What are you insisting? What are you saying that you have to, you've got to have? What are you saying that you can't stand not having? And change them into more healthy preferences. Into, I'd like to achieve that, but I'd never need to achieve that. I strongly want to be good at football. I would love to learn a language. I'd much prefer to be approved by others. I like the feeling of being approved by others, but I never need to, and I can stand their disapproval. I can stand their rejection, no matter how much I'd like to achieve that. Okay? Now, this is very, very important to remember, because when people can't distinguish the difference between an unhealthy feeling and a healthy feeling, people then get confused that, oh, I don't want to have any emotion at all. No, being recovered from OCD isn't becoming a emotionless, rational, numb robot where you just have a straight face thinking, nope, nothing bothers me. No. Now that I'm recovered, I am much more invested into sport, for example. I'm much more invested into my career, into my work, into my relationships, into my fitness and exercise, and anything that I do is learning languages, reading books. I'm very emotionally invested in that. It's because I have the very, very strong, driven desire to do well, to learn, to enjoy my life and enjoy whatever I have planned. But as soon as I then step the line and say, well, because I want to achieve this, I have to achieve this. Because I want a good relationship, I then must need a good relationship. Because I want to do well at work, I then need to do well at work. Because I want to be fit, I have to be fit, and I demand that I'm fit. Then it takes the enjoyment out of it, because you added piling the pressure on, because you're putting yourself that you have to achieve, that you must achieve, and if you don't, you then feel feelings of guilt, anxiety, depression, and panic. Now, for me now, although I have a very strong desire, if I don't achieve my goal, if I don't hit my target, if I don't meet my standard, my healthy standard that I'd set, then I just feel feelings of sorrow, regret, frustration, which is a good feeling, because then you acknowledge that you've done wrong. That's the healthy feeling, when you get what you don't want to get, when you get things that you really wish you didn't, and then you can learn from that, and then you can benefit from that, and then change in the future from that. And that is why healthy feelings are good, because you can learn, like I said, you can evolve, you can adjust, you can adapt to where you went wrong, and like I said, learn from that and use that for your benefit in the future. Whereas if I just got into a spiral of depression, panic, guilt and shame, I'm going to be less likely to change. I'm going to be so consumed in how I feel, berating myself, damning myself, downing myself. I'm going to be less likely to change them, because I'm not going to be thinking straight. I'm going to be very fatigued. I'm going to have very low frustration tolerance as well, because of how I feel. I'm not have much mental clarity, not much mental energy, because I'll just be feeling chronic guilt and chronic anxiety and over concern and over panic, meaning that I'm not going to be very determined to face that, because of just how down I would feel and how rubbish I would feel. Okay, so, and that makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference. We have to start looking at when you're triggered, when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling depressed, when you're feeling guilty. Look out for the must, look out for the should, look out for the rigid black and white demand, the inflexible way of thinking, look out for that and rip them apart. Okay, getting down on paper and change to rational preferences, to healthy desires, and to to healthy preferences. Okay, that's so important. Otherwise, it can feel very unconscious, and we can easily slip back in to an old way of thinking. Something I did very often. I'm talking from personal experience here, because when I stopped looking for my musts, stopped looking for my shoulds and my unrealistic demands, my unscientific way of thinking, because we live in a very irrational society, it's easy to slip back into that black and white thinking. It's very easy to do that. I've only got to go out in public and hear the word awful a million times. I can't stand this, I can't stand that, this is terrible. That catastrophization, that 0 to 100 you hear all the time. There's no wonder why people feel depressed, why people feel anxious, and why people feel guilty. It's because of those demands. That this must happen to me, I must do well, I must have their approval, I cannot stand it when people treat me unfairly, life must be easy. All those demands get us into a lot of trouble. So look out for the should, look out for the must, and work to change that to a healthy desire and a more rational preference. So important.